Mike Dry here, and I'm going to try to kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking for like a little pencil drawing. Obviously, this is just a draft, but it kind of covers all the Foundups and how it all fits together. Our planet has a problem, and all these things kind of materialize. We have dead zones over, we have all deforestation, loss of fisheries, all these plastic and erosion. Why? Well, the problem is our whole planet ecosystem and business model is built on something called infinite growth. And this infinite growth creates a problem, which is externalities. So the cost of climate change, for the cost of all these different things, are just the cost of doing business. Yeah. And as a result, here are the questions from Joseph. As a result, these are the problems that we ultimately don't have solutions for. But how do we fix it? That's the question. Is there a way? The good news is there is a way to fix it, and the solution comes with a new model, business model, on something known as the blockchain. What is the blockchain? Well, let me explain to you what the blockchain is, and we add that piece. Now, the previous model, which is not built on the blockchain, is built on a business model that's based on greed. You could call it the selfish startup business model. That ultimately these startups level up. They launch as these big corporations that ultimately fund politics and Wall Street and creates what's known as a vicious cycle. And then the politics reduces the laws and everything else, and it makes it easier for them to make money. This vicious cycle ultimately is driving all these things, the loss of fisheries, all of this, because these are all externalities to the cost of doing business. And the problem that we have with our planet is unless we change this, then nothing's going to get done. So what if the business model was not built on greed, but built on good? What would a business model look like? Well, what if a business model removed VCs, banks, investors, all these guys who are in this paradigm for greed, and removed the barrier to access to capital to get your ideas going? And what if this model put the power to invest in your hands? Well, this model is called Foundups. It's a decentralized startup or D-startup on the blockchain. So let's explain and talk about that. Imagine if you could have your business idea be able to launch and ultimately funded by not a bank, but fueled by individuals who are supporting it on the blockchain. And what if your idea to succeed just needs to be validated? So imagine that on the blockchain, there's something known as a decentralized fund, or we call a DAO. Just think of it as a decentralized hedge fund that ultimately puts fuel into your idea. And in this process, to be validated idea equals success. Doesn't equal access to closed capital, because the capital is right here for everyone to access. And it's access through something known as BI, which is beneficial intelligence. It's an AI. So all of this fuel that goes into your idea is driven simply by interacting on the blockchain. Not success equals access to closed capital networks, but how do Foundups and startups differ? Well, let's talk about the startup first to explain. The startup actually, if you think of a startup as a pyramid, right? The startup actually starts here. It has to have certain market value. It's got to have IP. It has to have all these different things. And ultimately, this space above, this pre-seed 99%, has no interest. It's a blue ocean. And ultimately, it's really simple. If we can empower and help the founder with these ideas, if we can help launch ideas, then these ideas can scale up. And in doing so, we replace the selfish startup. Now, understanding the startup is really simple. 99% of these pre-seed startups fail. They fail because they don't have access to capital in order to launch their ideas. Once they do get access to capital through VCs and angel investors and banks and loans and everything else, 90% of these fail because they fail to make the investors the kind of money they want, and they basically say, listen, you guys should go back into the system. Come up with a new idea. This was a good start, but we're going to get out because ultimately the money's not there. And finally, the VC stage, 25% of those fail because, again, greed. And they scuttled it because it doesn't meet the growth requirements for that business idea, and ultimately, so you got to tell me, if you've got 99, 90, and 25% failure rate, how is this a success model? And ultimately, if all we need to do is can we lower this 99% failure rate, and in doing so, we replace the entire pyramid. The selfish startup ecosystem is built on failure, which is driven by greed. Foundups is not built on infinite growth. This idea of infinite growth is what's driving all the externalities. Foundup is not built on access to capital, which means we don't need to get access to these groups in order to launch. What Foundups is built on is something called proof of value, which is good, built on your belief in them and what they're doing to the planet. So imagine that companies in the future are built on how they benefit the planet, not on how they are raping or destroying the planet. How do we fuel this whole new business model of Internet of Things or the collaborative economy? How do we fuel it? Well, we fuel it with a new coin or a new token called UPS. This is the fuel for innovation. This is the fuel for launching new ideas. This is the fuel for upstarts. And it's built on the blockchain. So let's talk about Foundups idea. So you have an idea. It's going to go through a 7-stage process to its launch. 2.5% of Foundups are going to launch. Now think of the launch is an IPO. So imagine if you could build the next Google on the blockchain, or Facebook on the blockchain, or Twitter on the blockchain, or Airbnb on the blockchain. These are all potential disruptive. We can disrupt every one of the major organizations out there. And imagine when they launch, 20 to 100% of their capital gains and net profits returns to this fund that ultimately then fuels more Foundups. So as the Foundup levels up, more fuel is put into them because the valuation has gone up, and this fund underwrites them. And as an individual, as an investor in these Foundups, you can exit and enter all you want. And then you're exiting and entering. And why would you exit and enter? Because we have something called the Foundup Mall, where you're going to spend your fuel to get cool things, right? You name it. You can put because ultimately maybe you want more ups, so you can put cool things up there for other people to buy, and there's a whole marketplace. Think of it kind of like an eBay, and in this interaction of going in and out, actually this interaction is kind of like an exchange. It fuels this reservoir of ups that ultimately is fueling. And the other thing too, as these things autonomously drive themselves around, because we have an AI that's going to drive everything around, ultimately when they launch, these guys are putting money back into it. So another way to look at this is you've got your ubiquitous coin called UPS. Can't spell ubiquitous, but that's what that's supposed to be there, ubiquitous. And we have something known as our launch, which is also called an ICO, initial coin offering. So we'll accept BTC, Ethereum, and all other coins. And as we build up this reservoir now is managed by this AI called proof of value. It's our system. This is registered proof of value. And in the act of doing these Foundups, you're actually getting ups. You're getting coins. It's going to be a new way of mining. By solving problems, you're going to mine, in essence, ups. And as these ideas start with just an idea, and level 1 and level 2 and level 3, and go out and out to the point when they launch, they return their net profits and capital gains back into the system at level 7. And here's the understand. Unlike the startup, it doesn't matter if you just stop here at level 2 or level 3, or if you don't have to graduate. There is no failure with the Foundup. You may be happy with you have a business that's generating income for you. You don't need to go become the next Google, the next Facebook. You're perfectly happy existing as a level 5 or level 6, which think of it this way, a level 4 would be kind of like a hot dog stand. A level 5 could be like 2 or 3 hot dog stands. A level 6 would be like having hot dog stands in an entire state. Level 7 is global. Right? So these different levels, and level 1, 2, and 3 are just basically getting you to it. And Foundups is a game. What you do is when you come into Foundups, you're going to decide what level do you think this idea is. Because when you voting for this level, it actually determines what? The proof of value. The more people saying this is a level 7, level 7, level 7, this proof of value is going to release more fuel into that idea. Make sense? Look at this here, actually we have something known as Foundup houses, okay? What is this? We're going to do this launch. What are we going to use the money for? Well, number one, 15%. This may change. Of this fund is going to be used to develop the app. Another 15% are going to launch our hardware, which I'm going to talk about next, which is Foundup houses, which are very important. This is our network of places where Foundups will be launched. And finally, 5% is going to be used for educational programming. We're launching Foundups in secondary education. We're launching Foundups in partner with Open University. This is huge. So we're going to fund that and build that. So each of these are each independent units of it. Now, what's a Foundup House and why Foundup House is very important? Well, ultimately, we're going to be launching Foundup Houses. Depending on how much we raise, we're going to launch these Foundup Houses. They are a permaculture homestead, they're a fabrication lab, and they're a Foundups hacker house. Now, understand that anyone can launch a Foundup House. There is no franchise, right? There is no fee to launch it. It does require a Foundups certification, which is going to be offered in Open University that you can take online, and then you can basically get registered by going and attending a Foundup House and get your certification done. And here's the cool thing: 30%, and this actually could go up or down depending on a couple different factors, but basically 30% initially will live and eat for free in exchange for 5 hours a day working on Foundups. We want to empower people. Say, listen, you can live for free, you can eat, work on your passion, work on your ideas, level up your ideas. The Foundup House is going to have the team for you. The Foundup House is going to be a place for you to really focus 100% of your time. Obviously, it's 5 hours, so the expectation is you'll have a job outside of that, but around that, in the morning or in the evening, or maybe you have a day off, you can just have a part-time job. You have no costs. Your hierarchy of needs are covered. 70%. The remainder will pay a small fee, and there's going to be an interchange between the two. So you're in here, it's not indefinite, maybe every 6 months or 9 months, depending on how the Foundup House is set up, it will be rolled out. And the encouragement there is we want these people who have been here for 6 months to go off and launch their own Foundup House, right? And ultimately understand that why we want Foundup Houses, because Foundup Houses are 80-80, which means at level 7, when a Foundup launches, becomes that next Google, that next Facebook, that next Twitter on the blockchain, because every corporation right now can be disrupted on the blockchain. That means Google, Gmail, everything can be disrupted. So we want to create the facilities for this disruption to happen, but what we do is 80% of the net profits of these new corporations and 80% of the capital gains of these goes where? Back into the system. Now understand, actually 60% of this 80% stays as kind of a fund that's attached to the house. Why is that? Because ultimately, if you're the owner of the house, you can use this fund to sell the house to us and double your investment or whatever, triple your investment in this Foundup House over a course of 5 to 10 years. Because the houses that launch the next Googles, the Facebooks, and everything else are going to become hero houses. And this fund, remember, is there to purchase these houses. So so unlike an Airbnb house where you can make just a kind of a residual income coming in, imagine having a secondary house, a third house that is a Foundup House, then you can basically exit out of and double or triple your investment in this house and build up a completely sustainable house that's off the grid, that produces food for yourself, that produces new products that will be distributed not through will be distributed through our mall, but through a network of Foundup Houses. So when you buy this table can be made anywhere, right, in the world. We don't have to ship it because the CNC router will basically put it out, put it together, and then you can pick it up at any Foundup House. The same goes for this table and this table right here, these doors right here, right, this column right here, you name it. If it's made out of wood, a CNC router, which is going to be at every house, will be able to make. Like, imagine being able to make this shuttle system just from wood laying around. And the design, everything else, will be part of our IP Commons, and you'll be able to put this together and, and have this for any house. A Foundup House, through these devices, are going to produce all the needs for the match of other houses. So what is the goal? The goal of these houses is simply to launch Foundup. Foundup Houses, we're going to launch our first two, one in Cape Town, one in Floripa. And these are the first two. And then our goal is to launch Silicon Valley, New York, London, Shanghai, Chengdu, Tokyo, Bangalore, Delhi, and you name it. So each Foundup House is going to have a network of folks. Remember, they rotate out. We want to encourage them to, especially as the Foundup House grows, these Foundup Houses, because the regional ones can also use their fund to launch other Foundup Houses. And people who are certified will be able to access those funds in order to do it. So these houses are going to grow very virally and literally all over, replacing potentially Airbnb and really creating a whole global network of our incubators and launch spaces. So Foundup launch a Foundup house in key Bitcoin blockchain markets is our first stage. Foundup houses will grow virally, no cost, no entry barriers. Foundup houses will replace potentially Airbnb because all of a sudden, or they won't, but a Foundup within a Foundup house can be modeled and created just like Airbnb. And Foundup houses will drive the collaborative economy and Internet of Things. So a Foundups is the business model for the collaborative economy. So imagine a world where you can work on your ideas without having to be enslaved to a job. That's the vision of Foundups. We will set up Foundup houses to solve localized problems. And I put here community center because I just went down to one of the townships and I'm like, holy cow, there's so much I could do. And imagine if we operated out of this community center. We could operate here, we can launch projects and everything else, and we can completely transform this first, I can't think what it's called, where in America we call it ghetto, but the township, right? These are townships, control the township and change everything in that township. We can completely transform that. So imagine a world now healing because of Foundups, because Foundups basically solve problems. That's what a Foundup. Foundup is fundamentally focused on creating jobs by solving localized problems. Some of these will launch and become the next major ideas, but the majority of them are going to scale up. They're not going to grow anymore because they're going to solve a problem. There's no need to keep scaling. The idea of infinite growth is a startup thing. Foundups is a flat model. Some of them will grow, but those then will fund all the others that will be static and not grow. Okay, together with Foundups, we can save the planet together. And our kickoff, which is also known as IOC, will be January 15th. And you can go to www.foundups.com and you can download your wallet for that IOC. So we are basically kicking off by creating our new kind of Bitcoin. Think of UPS as a ubiquitous Bitcoin that is transferable into any currency through our system. This is just to remember, Bitcoin started at like 25 cents each. Now it's $600 each. I'm not saying that that's going to happen to UPS, but that's the potential when you're dealing with cryptocurrencies. And UPS is similar to Bitcoin, is there's going to be a cap. Unlike Ethereum Classic, which is infinite, actually UPS is modeled after Bitcoin, and there's only so much UPS. Eventually, there's going to be UPS is going to, because of this potential scarcity in the future, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, is going to actually grow in value. So powers innovation. D startups, Foundups on the blockchain. A D startup is a decentralized startup. It's my invention. I started in 2009. Powers the Internet of Things and the collaborative economy. It fuels Foundups, ideas for solving localized problems that can scale up to be the next Google, Facebook, Microsoft. But unlike these selfish entities, returns 20 to 100% back to what we call the Dow, or our reservoir. Our UPS launch date is January 15th. You can join us in our Foundups revolution. Get your UPS wallet today. Visit foundups.com.